All right, so for this project, we are going to be making some non-objective art. So that would be abstract art that does not have any objects that represent objects from real life in them. So what you're really trying to think about is shapes and lines, okay? And as we're doing this, I'm going to encourage you to think about geometric shapes and organic shapes. Your paper can be going the tall way or the wide way. There's no wrong way for this particular project. But first thing I should put on the back is my name. Okay, so I've done that. And on the front, I'm going to encourage you to add between 3 and 5 geometric shapes. Now, when I say geometric shapes, really what I'm talking about are shapes that you would see in math class, for example. Any type of shape that has a name that we can identify. Triangle, circle, square. You can do your best to freehand those shapes. It is possible to draw a straight line with like a book or a folder, some type of a straight edge. If you have a ruler, that would be the ideal tool. But if you don't, you can just use like a book that you might have handy. So I'm going to use this. And since that, let's see, a straight line. Maybe I'll work on making a little rectangle here. You'll notice I'm trying to keep my shapes kind of medium size, I guess. Good way to put it. And I just have to fill in that little section right there. Okay. Of course, if you're trying to do a circle, you could freehand it, or you could try to find something that you might have on you, like a glue stick or anything circle-shaped, a water bottle that you could use to trace that. So I've got my water bottle here, so I'll just trace that. And actually what's cool is that one has a bottom and a top, which are different sizes. It gives me a variety. Okay, so I've got 3 geometric shapes in there. I might try to throw one in down there. Maybe I'll do a little trapezoid shape. Okay, so once you've got the geometric shapes in there, then you'll want to put some organic shapes in there. An organic shape is basically a shape that doesn't have a name for it, and oftentimes we think of organic shapes as being shapes that could naturally occur, right? So like if I drew something kind of inspired by a leaf shape, I'm not going to try to draw an actual leaf because I want it to look a little more abstract than that. But if I wanted to draw something inspired by a leaf, kind of have these types of curves to it, right? So we would call that an organic shape. Now, organic shapes can be, quite random. We don't make them scribble scrabbly. And I hope you're noticing how when I draw, I am overlapping some of my shapes. I want that because that's going to give you new areas to switch up colors when it's time to paint. I think I have room for about one more, and I might kind of try to get an organic shape that kind of shoots through here. Okay, so I'm liking that for a design. So you'll notice that creating this design can go pretty quickly. It's not the type of thing we overthink. Usually people who try to cram too many things into their design have a hard time with this. So if when it comes to the painting step, I should say, you have a hard time with it. So if I could make a suggestion to you, I would say limit yourself about 3 to 5 geometric shapes and about 3 to 5 organic shapes. So good luck with that. At this point, we are going to pause the video so that students have time to draw their geometric and organic shapes in pencil. All right, so now I'm ready to add a little bit of paint. I'll remind you, we're doing these in a monochromatic color scheme. And so what that means is we're sticking with one color and one color only. However, we will be changing that color by adding tints of white and shades of black. But for starters, you will have just the one color. So the color that I chose is orange. And I don't want to color in the whole thing orange because I will be using the tints and shades to adjust that color. So I'm just going to do a quick time lapse of some of the parts that I'm going to do orange, and hopefully you'll notice as I do it that I try to kind of randomize it. I don't try to have all the orange in just one spot. Okay, so I've painted in a few sections with my orange hue, which I have right there. Nothing's been mixed in with it yet. No white, no black, nothing. I hope you noticed that I needed two brushes to be able to do this at what I consider a decent quality, right? Keep in mind your lines don't have to be perfect because when this paint dries, we're actually going to go in with a Sharpie and kind of trace over these lines to clean them up. So first thing I hope you notice is you're probably going to need two types of brushes, one medium, one small. The other thing I hope you notice, I am not painting in my background, not at all. The only parts that I'm painting in today are the shapes and anywhere where the shapes intersect, like here, okay? This big empty background space, you could spend the whole day painting just that, and then you'd run out of time for the rest of the project. I have a feeling that tomorrow, when our paint is dry, we're going to be able to re-outline our shapes with Sharpie and color in the background quickly with either a crayon marker or colored pencil. At this point, we are going to pause the video so that students can paint with their first color. This first color should be one single hue. In my case, I chose orange, but you may choose one of the other colors of the rainbow for this section. All right, so at this point, cleaning your brush is not necessary because we'll simply be adding a little bit of white to our orange. Actually, I'm going to say that opposite of how I just said that. I actually want you to add some orange to your white because we want to keep some of this orange pure so that we can mix it with black in a moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some of that. I'm going to lift it into the white there. I might take another scoop and lift it in there. I have a feeling 2 scoops will be enough for me. You can add a third if you'd like. And I'm just going to mix all that white. So you notice the way I did this, I preserved my orange paint, but I'm trying to mix up all of the white that I've given you. That should give you enough for this next step. One thing that's kind of frustrating is trying to accurately match a color that you've already mixed. So I'd like you to mix up plenty. So I used all the white. So now all I have is my hue, and then I have my tint of my hue. So now I'm going to time lapse and do a little bit of painting. At this point, we are going to pause the video so that you can paint with your tint. Remember, your tint is a decent amount of white mixed with just a tiny bit of your hue. I took about 2 scoops of my color and mixed it with all of my white. All right, and now after you have painted in your tints with your white mix, now is the appropriate time to clean out your brush. There really should only be 2 times where you have to clean out your brush, and that's switching from your tint to your shade, and then at the very end when we're all done. So we're just gonna clean that off really, really good. So I'm just cleaning it in the water there. I'm actually kind of letting my bristles hit the bottom of the cup because that scrubs it too. And then you will need a paper towel to dry those off. Tempered paints do not like to be extra wet, so get all the excess water off of those brushes. Okay, and then I'm going to get my water out of the way. At that point, your teacher will help you get set up with a little bit of black paint. I do not intend to give you much black paint because a little bit goes a long way. So I'm just going to start out with a tiny bit right there. Now, before you go ahead and mix in all of your orange, just make sure you have touched up any areas that you need to touch up. I might save a little bit of that orange, but otherwise I'm going to try to pull most of it over to the black. And you're going to find that that really distorts your color, which is good. We want some variety in our color. For example, with the orange, it basically makes it look brown because we are pushing that orange basically as far as it can go on the shaded side of the scale without going totally black. Let's see, yellow is a color where it can almost make it look green when we add our black to it. Violet is a color that's naturally quite dark. Same with blue, so you probably don't need much black at all. And you will find that as this dries, it does lighten up a little. So don't be too nervous when you first see the color that you get. I promise you that as these dry, I think you'll be quite happy with how it looks. So I'm going to time lapse this part as well. Okay, so that is basically an example of what this could look like when it's totally finished. You'll notice I kept my background totally white. As I mentioned before, we will be filling that in with a drawing tool tomorrow. We need to let this paint dry before we can do anything with that today. And you might also notice that even when you're really taking your time and doing your best, it's very difficult to get a perfectly clean paint line. That is another reason why tomorrow we are going to come through carefully with Sharpies and just outline these shapes, which I think you'll be surprised how much that cleans them up. If for some reason you weren't able to fill in every section today, don't worry, because again, we're just going to fill in any sections you might have missed with a drawing tool, and we'll still be able to keep it in that nice monochromatic color scheme that you chose.